Hello. Thank you for joining me once again. I am reading The Children of the Law of One and the Lost Teachings of Atlantis by Jon Peniel. And we are in chapter 11, part 2. Okay, so I'm going to start on page 152 at the section of subconscious for those who may be reading along, which would be nice. Those that you are listening, thank you. And please share it, share this video with others so that others can get this message as well. This information is highly, highly important, and that is why I've challenged myself to do this reading of this book to share this message with others. So sit back and enjoy. Okay? Subconsciousness. Some psychologists are now saying that the majority of cognitive activity is outside of the conscious mind's realm. As we mentioned earlier, some say as much as 98% of our actions, thoughts, and emotional impulses come from the subconscious. This new evidence corresponds with the children's ancient Atlantean teachings, which we also mentioned earlier. When you start looking at the research from all the fields of both medicine and psychology, things get even more interesting. Spiritual masters and teachers have long known the profound effects of the subconscious and the power of the mind. But again, medical research into the effects of hypnosis have substantiated how directing the mind can do such things as block pain, constrict blood vessels to control bleeding, and etc. It has also been demonstrated that during an operation, what the anesthetized patient hears can affect their thoughts and actions, which in turn can affect their health. For instance, a patient's subconscious will accept and process a doctor saying he doesn't think the patient will survive, or that the operation was very successful and the patient should recover. Now, with all the latest psychological evidence, modern science is realizing that the subconscious mind has a powerful, previously unsuspected, by them anyway, control over many aspects of our lives, including feelings, thoughts, actions, and decisions. The biocomputer. Other than the examples of assumptions and belief that we just discussed, how did we come to believe all the things we believe? All the beliefs that are involved in making us what we are. Since a great deal of who we are and what we are is a sum of our beliefs, it sure seems like we ought to know why we believe what we do. The day after I contemplated Zain's comments about my prostate problems being related to my subconsciousness, to my subconscious, I had a glimmer of realization about my beliefs and asked him more about how and why we believe what we believe. Some beliefs are developed through our direct experiences, but primarily we had many of our beliefs programmed by our culture and the family and friends, teachers we've had throughout our lives. Some of this programming has been by training. Other programming took place very subtly by osmosis, just as being exposed to people and their behavior. The subconscious mind is much like these new electric computation devices. Our mind has memory storage that remembers all of our past experiences. It is also programmable and has been programmed by our experiences, especially our thoughts about our experiences. Average humans lack knowledge and understanding of this and just leave their programming up to others, to outside factors, and out of their control. In other words, the creation of the thing, the subconscious mind's program, that determines a substantial amount of what people think, emotionally feel, and physically do. They have left to chance. Even worse, it has been left to the selfish and dark manipulators of the world. But those aren't the only sources we get programming from. Everyone's programming has been from data, coming from all kinds of sources. Our programming gets altered or created from our experiences with the predators and manipulators of the world. The manipulated human sheep of the world, human laws, unwritten social laws, either taught to us directly or indirectly, picked up by observing the behavior of others, our own careless, conscious thoughts, etc. Even our observation of universal laws, like seeing the results of the laws of cause and effects. Stick your hand in the fire and it gets burned, and deeper concepts, creates and alters programming. Out of out of our control, programming is a vitally important fact. We have a mind full of programmed intellectual half-truths, which make up the foundation of our beliefs. We didn't do the programming, and these beliefs, which we didn't program, dictate our actions, good and bad. Someone else's beliefs are running your mind and thus running your life, which essentially means someone else is in control of your life. Think what that means, Peniel. All the people in the entire world are basically robots running on programming deliberately designed by others or haphazardly created, but usually a mix of both. Realizing the full significance of this is immensely important. Once one does, it becomes clear that we must analyze all our beliefs and feelings about things from as high a state of consciousness as possible and reprogram ourselves. Zain's remarks were shocking, scary, but so obvious and true. I had to reprogram myself, and I wanted to do it fast. But how? And what programming did I need to change? And what was all right to keep? I took a deep breath and asked him, finding and analyzing your programming. Reprogramming ourselves can be done in several ways. Author's note, these will be discussed later. But first, we must know what to change in our programming. There are different ways to become aware of what we want to change. Some things are obvious, like diet or smoking or some such thing. But unfortunately, most of our own bad habit patterns are negative subconscious programming that is out of our awareness. Meditation can help, particularly contemplative meditation, contemplation. In the more expanded and aware state of the mind that meditation creates, a person can better contemplate and examine their beliefs and subsequent feelings and thoughts about all kinds of issues. Such contemplation can also help you to determine whether a particular belief, feeling, or thought is positive or constructive, and thus should remain in programming, or is negative and destructive and should be removed or replaced. The result of some of our negative programming is often excuse me, pointed out to us by relatives or friends. But most people ignore such criticism from others, and unfortunately, sometimes criticism is given during the heat of an argument, which makes it even more difficult to accept. So even though someone may give you truthful and valid criticism, Because the separate self goes into a stronger defense mode in such situation, its basic ego defense mechanisms usually defeat your even becoming aware of your problem. For instance, I'm sure that during an argument you've had someone say to you something like, "You're always so such and such," or you've said it to someone else during arguments. It doesn't usually get anywhere because the selfish separate self's defenses go up, right? Regardless of whether what is being said is valid or not. And sometimes it is valid and sometimes it is not. When someone criticizes you, sometimes that's just them projecting their own problem and trying to transfer it to you. Or it's particularly true, but mixed with their own viewpoints, or tainted and distorted by anger, envy, or whatever. But many times, it may really be revealing an actual problem you have, something you may want to change if you thought about it and give it a chance. But the problem is, even when they are mirroring your own problems to you, if the criticism is contaminated because they have their own problems mixed in, they are not a clear mirror of your problem. And that makes it much more difficult for your selfish separate self and your true inner self to accept the truth in it, or even see what part is true and what isn't. So straightening yourself out with the help of such unclear mirror criticisms and opinions is like trying to shave or do your hair using very dirty, extremely warped funhouse mirror that is distorting your true reflection. It can still be done, of course, but to even see yourself clearly at all through such unclear, distorted, contaminated criticism, you must first have transcended your self-defense mechanisms. And if you aren't at a level of consciousness in which you are free from your separate self's defense mechanisms and ego, how are you going to be able to even see your negative programming problems, let alone have an opportunity to change them? Mirror, mirror on the wall, who has the fairest programming of all? Interacting with other like-minded people, friends, novices, students, etc., on your path can help, though, especially if you have a humble attitude. But often you run into the same problem just mentioned above. Ultimately, interacting with a true teacher, any enlightened being in a physical body like Zayn was, is the best way to find and analyze your programming flaws, and the only way to root out and dispose of your most subtle and deeply ingrained programming flaws. We'll get into this more in the chapter on teachers, but for now, we can take a quick look at how it applies to rooting out, seeing and changing negative programming in a way that applies to what you just read. A true teacher is like a clear mirror and an exorcist. Thus, there is no one more capable of finding your flaws, bringing them up to you, forcing you to see them like a mirror, forces you to see your physical self when you look into it, and then helping you change them. Unlike other people, the true teacher is a clear mirror, helping you to change them. Unlike other people, the true teacher is a clear mirror. He has no ego-based opinions or negative programming himself, that could get in the way of clearly showing you your ego based opinions and negative programming. Also, he doesn't have any desire just to win the fight or not being wrong, like most people do. First of all, he doesn't engage in arguments. Discussions, yes. Arguments, no. So all criticism is done strictly in the environment of pointing out your flaws to help you grow and improve yourself. And if you have actually chosen a true teacher to help you change, by the very fact that you have chosen the teacher to help you, you will likely have more respect for what he says to you. Thus, you will likely be more receptive to what he reveals to you about yourself. Thus, it will be easier to see and make changes. But try to remember, while this is one of the ways a true teacher serves you, it is not a pleasant task for him. When a true teacher shows you yourself, what you see about yourself is often not a pretty picture, since most people actually believe, live, feel, and think that they are their separate selves. Thus, any criticism is seen as a threat and thus an attack, and defenses go up and are called into action. Even the caring criticism from a loving true teacher whom you've asked to deliberately give you criticism to help you is seen and felt by you, your selfish separate self, as a personal attack on you. Your separate self, your selfish separate self realizes your inner being's attempt to gain control from the separate self is an attack on it. Thus, what the true teacher shows you about yourself triggers a response, and your separate self will want to attack back to defend itself. If you allow this to happen, even internally, it will hamper your process of changing and hurt your true teacher. Even though you may hold your tongue, your true teacher will feel your animosity anyway. And true teachers, by their very nature, are the kindest, most loving, and most sensitive beings on earth. So it hurts them greater than it would hurt a normal person. I know I hurt mine many times. Zayn is gone from this earthly plane now, and I deeply regret some of my responses and feelings toward him. I know he understands and understood even then, but still, he didn't deserve any more pain, and I didn't need to make it so hard. Or maybe I did, but in retrospect, I could have been more humble, more receptive, and made the process easier on him. A true teacher is doing nothing but showing you the negative thing you have created and nurtured. Yet they become the primary target of negativity from the student, simply because the student's separate self is threatened by the student seeing himself. So if you ever have such a true teacher who loves you and is sacrificing his life to help you, remember that when you come under attack, your teacher is doing this because he loves you. And you asked him to do this painful, dirty work. When you react negatively to truth that exposes yourself, this is very painful for someone at a true teacher's level of consciousness. Yet he takes it. He endures that pain you cause him. So great is his love for you. thoughts, the invisible building blocks of our physical realities. Regardless of the percentage, the subconscious mind is undoubtedly influences our lives to a great extent. Also, what we consciously think about, being it from conscious or some subconscious sources, has a great deal to do with determining what we make of ourselves and what we create for our lives, for ourselves in life. So, there are basically two areas of the thought process we need to be very aware of: the thoughts that program our subconscious biocomputer, like those just described, and the interrelated conscious thoughts that construct our physical realities. As pointed out earlier, every man made thing on earth was first a thought, just a simple thought. You can't touch it, taste it, smell it, or see it, yet it's the most powerful human device on earth. No human being has ever done anything without first having a thought conception, followed by the whole train of thoughts necessary for it to become a reality in the physical world. As amazing as it may seem when you stop and really think about it, the truth is that everything you have ever done in your entire life was the result of a thought. And that's just a drop in the bucket compared to the full potential of the mind's power. When you consider all that is, when you consider all that, it isn't hard to realize that we need to be very selective about the thoughts we allow to run inside of our heads. Also, as mentioned in an earlier chapter, thoughts are building blocks of virtually everything else surrounding our lives. The mind is a kind of construction worker who assembles the building blocks, and the wheel is the construction boss. And all even though we are all dealt different hands in the game of life, how we play those hands affects the way the game goes, and eventually the way the results come out. And what we think determines the way I did it again. And what we think determines the way the game goes. Once more, our entire life is greatly the result of our mental attitudes, our thoughts, and resultant actions. Biocomputer domination, the invisible thought maker. Back to my earlier discussion with Zain. But Father, surely there's more to changing than just reprogramming our beliefs and subconscious mind. I mean, I studied the subconscious even before coming here, and I know its power, but at least most of what we do every day is conscious, isn't it? Yes, definitely, but no. And don't call me Father Shirley. What? That's a joke, son. Oh, you students, always so serious. Of course, there is more to it than subconscious. You must be concerned with your conscious thoughts and redirect them if need be. If that wasn't an issue, there would be no need for the conscious part of the world, subconscious. Let me reread that. If there wasn't an issue, there would be no need for the conscious part of the word subconscious. But not only do we need to be concerned with thoughts that are an aspect of the conscious mind, we also need to be aware of the many thoughts that continually surface from the subconscious mind without even noticing them. They are conscious thoughts, to be sure, but they are in a gray area that an untrained or unalert mind doesn't notice consciously. But subconscious, but the subconscious is the very powerful and consistently influences our lives by giving us impulsive reactions and a continuous stream of thoughts. These impulses and thoughts can include strong emotions, likes, dislikes, hate, fear, etc., already formed discussions and judgments, ideas, and physical actions of all kinds. A temper tantrum is just one example of those emotional surfacing impulses. But whether thoughts or emotions, they pass unnoticed into conscious awareness, and once there, we find ourselves thinking and feeling the thoughts and emotions that came from our program without even knowing it. It literally takes over our thought process and feelings and can be very destructive in our lives. Such thoughts can come from subconscious programming thought that has nothing to do with what a person would think ordinarily, or if they consciously thought things out. Yet, people's experience these thoughts and feelings just as if they were their own consciously chosen conscious thoughts and beliefs. And because people believe these thoughts to be their own, they often they are often defensive and use mental evasion tricks. Bullshit, as it is commonly called. If anything threatens to really bring these subconscious thoughts and ideas into the light of conscious thought examination, for instance, when someone's words or actions are really just their subconscious programming playing itself out, and their words or actions have no logical explanation, what happens if you ask an analytical question about why they are saying or doing such and such? What kind of response do you get? I guess something like, I don't know. You can do better than that, Peniel. How many times have you asked someone something like, why are you being that way? And the response was something like, that's just the kind of person I am. Or that's just how I feel. Or that's just what I believe. Or that's just how I was raised. As far as they're concerned, that's just the end of the discussion. They don't want to deal with the reason why they believe, or are that way. They have a sign up. Separate self at work. Do not disturb. Any further prodding as to why may just get an angry, illogical backlash. Such statements often accompany behavior which can't be logically or consciously explained, and are often or offered as rationalizations for some kind of negative behavior or refusal to open the mind and think. And many of us have been raised by parents whose answers to our questions as a child was often just because. That's right. Anyway, do you know why the apple falls to the ground? Other than gravity? Yes, because it is ripe. No, just because. Zayn was in unusual spirits, and if I didn't know better, I'd have thought he was indulging in some unusual spirits. Oh no, I thought to myself, it's catching. He looked at me sternly and then said, say good night, Gracie. Good night, Gracie. Father, can you be serious for a moment so I can finish trying to get this whole thought thing down in one bite? Father, please, I still have hours of meditation to do. Yes, very well. Is this better? He made a serious face. Yes. Okay. Now, where were we, Peniel? Ah, yes. Along the subconsciously generated thoughts we've discussed, there are also subconsciously generated physical actions. And even beyond the autophysical responses, there are the physical actions that result from what you think. What? Just think about it. Setting the proper thought course. So, even if we consciously want to think and be one way, we might not be wanting that or doing that subconsciously. Well, what do you think? Father, again, a tremendous amount of our conscious thoughts and actions, in fact, most of what we take to be our conscious thoughts and actions are actually from areas of the subconscious. That's why it is so important for us to understand and properly use the process in which thoughts create our physical experiences. Since we are constantly being manipulated by our own programming, if it is not in order, it will create many problems in our physical lives. In fact, subconscious programming, things you aren't even aware of, can work at complete cross purpose to your conscious desires, thoughts, and goals, negating any progress you attempt to make. So, what is the first thing I should do to change what you seem to be saying is my slavery to my subconscious programming? To break free of such slavery, you must first decide that you really want to change. You can't just have a mild intellectual attitude like, I think I should change. If you really don't want to change desperately and you're just pretending and you just think you should change, then you're just spinning your wheels and playing a game by trying to change. Are you saying I'm doing that? No. This is not just about you. These are teachings from the whole world, Peniel, for everyone. Quit thinking so paranoid about yourself and just listen, or you'll miss half of it all. Next, you need to gain access to your subconscious mind and reprogram yourself with positive and constructive new programming. This puts you in control, letting you decide what you want to think and what you want to do in life, rather than allowing the program to decide for you. Programming. So, what do I reprogram myself with? Especially considering the paradox of truth. The ancient Atlantean teachings of the children state that it is absolutely necessary to view and maintain our own programming from a universal state of consciousness in order to maintain oneness with the universal spirit while living on earth. This was conceived to prevent our consciousness from falling in ancient times, but it still applies. So either very deep contemplative meditation or enlightenment. Yes, enlightenment is really the best way to have this occur. Getting the new programming from God, from the hierarchy. In lieu of that, get recommendations from an adept, a true teacher who is getting it for you from the hierarchy, and see if your inner voice tells you it's right. Even after we've cleaned up our old programming, then how do we keep from getting new negative programming? Good question again. Besides analyzing and reprogramming all of our beliefs, we need to attempt to prevent new ones from getting programmed without our conscious choice. So, at very least, we must make our analysis and reprogramming an ongoing process. What meditation will help me the most for that? Any meditation technique that works well for you is good. As you know, the teachings present a variety of specific meditation techniques and consciousness tools that can help us to go further than our normal consciousness limitations and ultimately directly experience oneness with universal consciousness. Those can all help you to reprogram yourself. Author's note: instructions for these ancient meditations and energy techniques are explained in detail in the second half of this book. Some you may already know because of the other religions spawned by the children, but these are the original forms. There are also different languages that can be used to speak to your mind. We discuss these in the chapters on visualization and affirmations. Zain continued, one day soon, you'll be able to use the skills, knowledge, and abilities you have developed over your lifetimes to let the universal spirit work through you in such a way as to recreate one of the best of the ancient Atlantean vibrational techniques to help others reprogram themselves. The technology to do this and other things you will use to bring light to an ever darkening world will soon be available again. First, the universities in Russia and the United States. First, in the universities of Russia and the United States. You will find what you need for the vibrational tools there. I have foreseen in my dreams that something you will need for one of these things you will be doing in the future will be found in an old German car, an old American car. Another story, not for this book. Okay, you're joking again, right? No. When have you known me to be anything but serious? Nothing to say? You'll see. By that time in your future, you will have no need of the Atlantean vibrational reprogramming tools for yourself, for you would have already reprogrammed yourself. But for others, it will be a great blessing. A new ancient tool. Everything Zain told me came to pass, even about parts I needed from antique cars. We are fortunate to again have one of the most powerful reprogramming tools at our disposal, one whose roots are from Atlantis. Atlantean technology was quite advanced in comparison to ours. Many methods were developed for healing and consciousness raising that involved technology based on the understanding of universal laws and vibration. Color, sound, and olfactory aspects of vibration were used to access and affect the body and mind. Fortunately, one of these tools that used sound was able to be made again with the advancement of crude electronic sciences. It utilizes very specific sound waveforms and frequencies that weren't possible to make in modern times. Until the invention of the electronics capable of specific frequencies and waveform generation. The resultant consciousness raising tool I'm speaking of uses sound waves to integrate the mind and allows access and reprogramming of the subconscious mind. These Atlantean vibrational signs have been recorded, and by the time this book is released, they should have been copied for those of you who wish to use them on cassette tape and or CD. Thus, while it is very powerful, it is cheap and easy to use. See the meditation section for more information and the back of the book for ordering instructions. Besides allowing reprogramming, again, you can read the specifics on how to modify it yourself to change your programming in the second half of the book. The functions of the vibrations are to integrate the threefold aspects of being conscious, subconscious, and universal conscious, or physical, mental, and spiritual realms. Setting goals in the subconscious. Worthy of your consideration, too, is this. When a goal is programmed into the subconscious mind, its automatic thought generation and powers of influence all work for you, constantly and perseveringly directing you towards fulfillment of that goal. This will be discussed further in the chapter on goals and ideas. Combining an idea or goal with your reprogramming is very powerful. Another aspect of the subconscious mind that is of interest to us is in the area of control of the autonomic nervous system. More on this later. Defense against unwanted programming. Unfortunately, our lack of familiarity with the workings and programmability of our subconscious mind has not only created problems in our emotional and personal lives, but more importantly, it has left us prey to many individuals on organizations that would have us see things their way. Most of us don't even know when this has happened. We have a full set of rational reasons for why we believe this or that. And the sons of Belial and their servants know how to and do use such methods of influence. The fact is, a great deal of what you think and of what you believe has little to do with your independent and creative thought processes. I know that sounds incredible and frightening, but it is quite true. Even that which might be considered mundane or of little importance, such as advertising to sell various products using techniques of psychological, subconscious, and subliminal manipulation. Listen to the music. Before we go on, I would like to touch upon the power of music, especially as it relates to unwanted programming. Music has been said to be the closest thing to a language of God. It has been used for rituals since the beginning of time. The Catholic Church used music by Bach to inspire churchgoers. I read that Rival's Bolero was actually based on an African shamanic ritual music piece used to stimulate or open the chakras. Allegedly, in his first public performance of it, he was devastated because the audience failed to applaud at all. 15 minutes later, as he sat depressed in the alley behind the concert hall, He heard the audience suddenly giving rave applause. They were apparently so moved, stunned, entranced, or in a revere that it took them quite a while to come out of it and respond. The first half of Ravel's Daphnis et um, Clo Suite 2, is like the musical representation of the kundalini rising and the subsequent bliss. It is incredibly beautiful. Music definitely has the power to make you strongly feel all kinds of emotions, from the bliss of touching God to the depression and loneliness to the feelings of lust or violence. The right positive instrumental or lyrical music can be a wonderful meditation in and of itself. But there is far more here than meets the eye or ear. Even before I came to the monastery back when I was studying alternative religions and spiritual paths as a young teenager, I was also studying psychology and learning things about the subconscious mind and subliminal programming. At some point back then, I also came to realize that there was a major war going on between the forces of dark and light, right there on the radio and on records. And no one I personally knew at the time even noticed it. And I believed it had at least some effects on the listeners via the subconscious. I'm not talking about alleged backward masking, subliminal programming. I can't say I've heard it at all, but the backward masking clips that I have heard, which people claim are satanic messages, could just as easily be drunk slurring words about their laundry. Whereas the kind of thing I'm talking about was something quite different, very clear and overtly blatant. I'm referring to lyrics that were and still are there, right there up front, flaunting themselves in people's faces or ears and brains in this case. I'd noticed that most people didn't really listen or really pay attention to the lyrics of a song. And it seemed to me that because of this, they were getting subliminal information just by virtue of ignoring the lyrics. Psychological studies were being done about this sort of thing back then, but as usual, oh gee. But as usual, there was no consensus among scientists, and some studies were secretly done for advertising purposes. Of the studies that were available, some supported and some argued against it. The theories that related to my conclusion. So, what can you do? Make up your own mind, which is what I did. From my own observations and studies, I concluded that the less people paid attention to the lyrics, the more the lyrics bypassed their normal conscious mind, filters, and defense mechanisms and went right into their subconscious minds. My studies in hypnosis had shown how things that slipped right by the subconscious mind and couldn't be consciously recalled were being stored and recorded by the subconscious constantly. Like a built in human personal surveillance system. I heard one of the incidents where the police used hypnosis to get the license number of a car used in a robbery. The information was stored in the man's subconscious and was merely seen by him only with his peripheral vision. He never looked directly at the license plate, but the problem was the personal surveillance system, the subconscious mind, wasn't just a recorder. It had influence with many aspects of our lives, emotions, beliefs, personalities, etc. Anyway, as I studied song lyrics, I found many interesting things. Some, of course, were just mild, self oriented love songs or party songs, but some were clearly more negative, from self destructive to out and out evil of all kinds. Yet, these were never noticed or complained about by the public at that time. Other songs had positive, uplifting, and truly spiritual lyrics. In fact, it seemed to me that if higher and lower consciousness beings of any kind wanted to communicate with and affect the minds of the masses, it was a perfect medium for it. Some lyrics were so spiritual that one would almost have to conclude that the songwriter was enlightened and had great spiritual knowledge. Then, later in life, I got to meet many of the musicians whose lyrics were so strikingly saint like and spiritual. I discovered that some were just average conscious people, some maybe a little above average, some maybe below average, and some were egoed out jerks. What they all had in common was they were getting stoned on hallucinogenic drugs. And since playing music was like meditative technique, they were getting into a trance-like state and just channeling these incredible lyrics. On the dark side, the same thing was happening, but the musicians were definitely way below average consciousness. Don't get me wrong, I am not advocating any kind of censorship other than personal censorship. The lesson? Make sure you know the lyrics of the music you are listening to. Read the lyric sheet if you must. Then choose what you want to listen to, knowing that whatever it is, you are allowing some of it into your conscious and subconscious mind, and it may have effects. Now, on to other deeper aspects of reprogramming. Okay, I'm going to stop there, even though there's not very many pages left. I've gone almost an hour, and it takes a long time to upload. I am reading The Children of the Law of One and the Lost Teachings of Atlantis by Jon Peniel. Thank you, thank you, thank you for taking the time to listen as I read this book to you. I encourage everyone to get this book. Like we just read, there's techniques on the second half of this book. I'm going to try my best to read some of it, but some of them are, it really is actually, you're doing it. So, and with that being said, thank you once again, and until next time.